Welcome back, Men of the P.R.I.Z.E podcast. It's me, Harvey. How are you? I'm still your guest and still your host. Not only am I the host here, but when I get to talk to these amazing men, I feel like I'm kind of listening from the outside. I get to pick up something new from every man that I talk to. So I'm a guest in a way. I hope your week has been great. I hope you are striving for success. I hope you are not letting the little things that happen in life get you down. It's just part of life, but we are better because of it. So, as you know, this is the summer sessions. I usually run from the beginning of the year up until Father's Day, but I love doing these so much that I wanted to get more men on the podcast. So, I'm lucky enough to have another great guest. Oh, I never even asked him how to say his last name. So, I'm just going to ask him to do it. We're going to start. His name is Matthew. Let's bring it in. Matthew, say your last name for me because I hate when people rip mine to shreds. How do you pronounce it?
All good. It's a tricky one, and almost nobody gets it right, so don't worry about it. But my last name is pronounced Jodouin.
Jodouin. Okay, excellent.
There you go. You got it.
All right, Matthew Jodouin. Welcome. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me, Harvey. I'm really looking forward to connecting with you today, man.
Likewise. This is great. I am glad we get to talk. Okay. So, if this is the first time that you are listening or watching this podcast, you picked a great episode. We're going to have a fantastic conversation. This is a space for men to be open, vulnerable, and emotional. We're talking. And it's not something we do enough. It's not something we do with enough substance. So I purposely created this space so that you can hear other men talking about what life is, what they're going through, how they're dealing with life. But more importantly, hearing men talk so that you are comfortable talking. That's why this is. So I'm going to love hearing Matthew speak, but I'm going to be even happier the fact that he is speaking. And that's really the point for me, is that our men are talking. And then you understand that it's good to do. So, if you've watched or listened, you know what I love. I love a good bio. You can't see the paper. A good bio. There we go. Allow me to read here. In the fast-paced arena of life, Matthew Jacob Jodouin has emerged as a pivotal figure, renowned as a mentor, men's coach, speaker, and author. He guides high-performing men from the brink of professional burnout toward a state of balance and fulfillment. His unique approach has captured the attention of executives from Fortune Global 500 companies, university directors, and C-suite executives alike, who are all drawn to his profound wisdom. His philosophy goes beyond conventional success metrics, emphasizing nurturing peace of mind and personal fulfillment and developing presence, patience, and emotional intelligence, EQ. In a world where professional recognition often takes precedence, he understands the value of personal well-being. He has crafted transformative programs like Unstuck, Momentum Mastermind, Success Principles, and the latest edition, Thrive 360. These programs are designed to empower men, not just in their careers, but also in their personal lives, making them pillars of strength. His journey is not just a personal narrative of leadership and mentorship, but a story that challenges the norm and encourages men to seek fulfillment beyond their professional accomplishments. By highlighting the importance of physical fitness, peace of mind, and enriched relationships, he is reshaping individual lives and contributing to a cultural shift towards a more holistic view of success. I love a great bio. Clearly, you've done so much in your life, and you're going to be doing more. So I read the bio live purposely for one reason, because we men tend to not hear our accomplishments read to us or said to us. We don't get that, oh, good job or whatever. So I like reading it back. So here's my first question. What's it like hearing what you've done just so far in your life?
It's interesting because you're right. And so oftentimes we're like in the thick of it, and if you're anything like me, some days can feel like a battle. Am I right?
Yep.
And sometimes, unless you really stop to appreciate how far you've come and all the little successes and achievements and steps along the way, you can feel like, you're, still in the pursuit. And that's kind of an endless journey, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so that's one thing that I actually really encourage clients and people alike to do, as far as just kind of pausing every once in a while to take inventory and appreciate what you've accomplished, what you've done, how far you've come, and all those little steps along the way that helped you get to where you are today. And so to hear you read back some of that, you know, was encouraging to say the least. So I appreciate you. Thanks for
Oh,
doing that.
no problem. What I like about it is that it's in most, well, in every case, it's just the beginning. That's what you've done up until now. And you have a whole another portion of your life to do so much more to accomplish. So when you hear how much you've done so far, in my mind, it's like, all right, what's next? What am I doing tomorrow? Where am I going to be at the end of the year? What steps am I going to take to improve and to be even better? So it's a reminder that this isn't the end. This is really just the beginning. Matthew, you have so much more to accomplish. There's so many men that are going to value what you bring to the world and everything that you offer. So no, this is when you start going even faster. So keep it going. It's wonderful.
Well, thank you for that. And you know what's funny is that it's even more, I don't know, encouraging considering how much time I wasted
Mm,
during my 20s, messing around, getting caught up with the wrong crowd, and you
right.
know, wasting time, procrastinating, delaying, making excuses for myself, and all sorts of things. But I heard a quote recently that said that life really does begin at 40, and
Mm,
up until then, you're just doing research. And so, to your point there, I
yeah.
feel like in a lot of ways, I'm just getting started.
Yeah, I like that. That's good. And that's always the way to look at it. I think about it is we should always think that way. We should never be content. You are going to accomplish a lot of things. I know I will. And for me, it's being a father and other successes and coaching men and doing things. But I always, when I talk to men, it's like no matter what you've done today, you take a second. Wow, I got that done. What's next?
Right.
What's step two? What's tomorrow? What am I going to do when I get out of bed tomorrow? What is the big move I'm making? So I agree with you entirely. If this is the first time you are watching or listening to this podcast, men are the prize. Prize is the word for this podcast. I took that word, and four of the letters in the word represent characteristics that I think are good for men. And I use it when I coach men and when I just talk to my son or friends about how we men should live. So let's talk about it. The first letter in the word prize is P. The word is purpose. Purpose is defined as reason for which something is done or created or for which something exists. Matthew, what is your purpose?
You know, that's a word that I really like to discuss myself personally.
Okay.
And I think that the word purpose can sometimes be a moving target, to be honest with you, and
Mhm.
maybe depends on the situation. But I've been hugely influenced by a man named Napoleon Hill. Napoleon Hill, some people might know as the author of Think and Grow Rich, which is widely regarded as one of the best personal development books of all time. And he talks about the importance of having deftness of purpose, and even as far as like it relates to goals. Okay. And he says that a man without a goal is like a ship without a rudder. You
Okay.
know, and if you can imagine, a ship without a rudder is just going to drift aimlessly at sea
Mhm.
with no direction, no, you know, destination, and no specific target or purpose.
Right.
You know, and as eventually a ship without a rudder that's just drifting out at sea is eventually going to do one of two things. It's either going to end up, one, wrecked on the rocks, or two, you know, like lost and turned around at the whim and the mercy of the waves around it. And so, you know, that's something that I talk a lot about as far as like goal setting and purpose in general. And I think sometimes people think that purpose has to be like this overarching life's purpose. And I'll tell you, man, sometimes, you know, that can be daunting. And, you know, I don't know if, you know, you've landed on your purpose or maybe have articulated it in such a way that, you know, you're able to dial it in. But I think for me, if I really boil it down and I peel back the layers, I think for me, my purpose in life, I think would be to continue to learn, continue to grow, to become you know, strive to become the man that I know that I'm capable of becoming.
Okay.
And also, you know, last but not least, I think the purpose in life for me is to find ways to be of service to others.
Okay. I like that. When I talk to men about purpose, there's, I get it's two sides to the coin. And some men know what they want and know what their purpose is from the beginning. Early on,
Sure.
when I did this podcast, I would talk to men and we would talk about how they grew up, stuff that
Mm.
happened to them, maybe good parenting, bad parenting, stuff like that. In a lot of cases, our purpose was determined by what we needed growing up. So a
Mm,
lot of men that I spoke to, father wasn't there, or it was an abusive household, or mom wasn't there, whatever. So then men who maybe didn't have somebody to talk to, they go into mental health. They become a psychologist or a psychotherapist, things like that. If they sadly grew up in an abusive household, then I got men who became attorneys to be supportive for women who were dealing with abusive households. A lot of times, what I need, what I needed growing up is what I become when I become a man. And I think that's interesting. So then you've got the men who, this is what I'm going to do. Then you've got other men who are like, you know what? I thought I knew what I wanted to do. I thought I knew my purpose when I was 10. I want to be a fireman. I'm 15. I want to be a professional wrestler. I'm 20. I want to be a teacher. I'm 30. I want to do this. And men recognize that sometimes purpose isn't one thing. It sounds
right.
closer to what you, it's different things and it changes. And maybe when
Sure.
you get there, it's going to do something else. And I think either case is good.
Right.
Sometimes I don't know what my purpose is, and I'll find it when I'm 70. Or I knew immediately, and then I got there, and then there's more. But acknowledging that and figuring out where you stand in terms of that word is important because you said you did something personal to you. And it should be purposeful and should be personal to every man that you know, like, what am I here for? Why am I alive? What am I walking on this earth for? It's my point. I need direction. I need a rudder.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I think that the point that you're bringing up there about it can change, over time, I think is really important. And I think sometimes it changes on situation to situation. My purpose as a father might be a little bit different than my purpose as a coach or professional realm and so on and so forth. But I heard a quote that really resonated with me and something that I've come to appreciate. And that's that, if you follow your passions, it will lead you directly to your purpose.
Mhm.
And the reason I like that so much is because I really truly think that the things that bring us the most joy, the things that make us feel like our, hearts on fire, or fill our tank, so to speak, are the things that allow us to step into our greatness, that allow us to step into our purpose, that allow us to step into our passion. And people who feel like they've come alive, who have a sense of purpose and passion, that kind of energy, it's very contagious. Am I right? Am I
Yes.
right?
Yes. Oh, so true. So true. Mhm.
And I think that we need more of that in the world today.
Agreed.
People to follow their passions and to pursue things that, make them feel alive, make them want to jump out of bed in the morning and make them want to, contribute.
Okay. What are you passionate about right now?
Hmm. What am I passionate about right now? Right now, I'm on a bit of a personal development journey myself and learning to kind of let go of my ego. It has been, obviously probably a challenge for many, but it's a constant journey, and learning to put my own wants and my own needs aside as a man, as a husband, as a father, to learn to prioritize, other people, to
Okay.
find ways of being value to them, and to step into, the potential that I know that I have. And some of that requires doing appearances like this with you, Harvey,
Mhm.
putting myself out there, being seen, being heard, being willing to be vulnerable, is a new endeavor.
Okay.
And it's something that, lends itself to some of my passions, which is coaching others.
Right. Okay. I like that. That's good. Vulnerability is a big word for me. It's when I started this podcast and every episode, I'm not the subject, you're the subject, whoever I'm lucky enough to talk to about this. But I felt the only way to do this fairly was to make myself the subject the first time. The first episode is me. And I answer these questions and I'm vulnerable. If I'm going to expect you to, in a lot of cases, I haven't met you. I don't know you yet. So I want to talk to you and I want you to feel comfortable talking to me. So I'm going to tell you everything, good or bad. You're going to
Right.
hear. And for me, I'm comfortable with it now. So it's when I was 18, I tried to kill myself because I was so low.
Mm.
And I got past that. And now I understand how you can feel so low and then get to feel so high and can talk to men about it. But vulnerability, and it's a tough word, it's a profound word for us. But another word that I like is the second letter in the word prize. The letters R, the word is resilience. Resilience, the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties and toughness. Can you think of something that happened in your life, a situation that you got through and that you discovered you had a resilience you didn't know that you had?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure if you're aware of this or not, but I've struggled with substance abuse for most of my adult life. And I have what I would call a colorful history with drugs and alcohol.
Okay.
And it led me to some very dark places, and over the years, I was involved in all kinds of, multiple car accidents. I was hospitalized. I was fired from my job. I got in fights, with friends and girlfriends and parents. And, I was arrested, it had caused all kinds of trouble.
Right.
And, the nature of the addict's mind is that the alcohol or the drugs was never the problem. As I saw it, it was always the solution. That's what helped me in certain situations, and that's how I justified it or rationalized it to myself. And what I found is that eventually it got to the point where drugs and alcohol were causing more problems than it was solving. And I eventually had to come to terms with the fact that I was way, way, way down a hole that I couldn't get myself out of. And I had tried, trust me, Harvey, I had tried just about everything I could think of as far as kind of like cutting back and taking breaks and slowing down and that sort of thing. But I always found myself right back where I started. And when I finally got some sobriety under my belt, and I learned how to, kind of manage my thoughts, manage my emotions, connect with other people, open up about some of my experiences and, the emotional trauma or wounds that I had had. I found some real strength in that. And one thing that I've learned really kind of deeply and maybe even the hard way is that I find that, the more that I experience the dark, is the more that I'm able to really appreciate the light.
Yes, sir. Yes,
And you can't have one without the other. And so I found that going through that, dark soul of the night, so to speak, was actually a really big blessing in a lot of ways because it allowed me to really break through to the other side. And I think it speaks to your comment there about resilience. Like it takes strength, it takes consistency, it takes perseverance, takes persistence, it takes resilience. But once you get through to the other side, and not that there's ever like, a finish line to that kind of thing, but it opens the door to experiencing gratitude, peace, love, joy, happiness, and so much of the brighter things in life. You know what I mean?
No, definitely. When I ask men that question, usually there's a thing, a singular situation that happens. And I will ask men, okay, so this happened. Given if you had the opportunity, the choice, would you relive it? Or would you, not let it, not have it happen and just deal with life? But when it comes to addiction, as we all know, is not a singular event. It is a lifetime. It is something you do. If you're an addict for the rest of your life, you're dealing with this forever. So it's kind of a tough question, but knowing where you are now, seeing where you are now, the clarity that you have now, given what you went through, was all that happened worth where you are now as a man?
Yeah, I think the short answer to that is yeah. And, I think that so oftentimes we think that, we want a life without challenges. We think that, we'd like to have an easy life, without any challenges. And, but the truth is that a happy life isn't a life without challenges. A happy life is having the courage and the confidence to turn and face those challenges head on. And in fact, I think that I would take it even a step further and say that a happy life comes from overcoming some of those challenges. And so a lot of ways, I think that they're necessary. They're a necessary ingredient to a happy and a fulfilling life. And so even when it comes to like raising my two young boys, so we have two boys, a 8-year-old and a 6-year-old. And, I don't want them to have an easy life or an easy existence. Now, I'm not, wishing them ill will or anything like that.
Of course.
Don't make any mistakes. But, it builds character, it builds resilience, it builds strength, it builds confidence, it builds self-esteem.
So
and if you take away some of that struggle, in essence, you're taking away some of that self-esteem, and
yeah,
that's such a necessary ingredient, and it actually helps us to thrive. And so, although I wouldn't have asked for or wished upon anybody some of the struggles or challenges that I've faced, especially when it comes to substance abuse, um, I don't think I'd change it.
that's good to hear. That's good to know. Acknowledging that is such an important thing. You mentioned your sons. I am a proud father of four. I love talking about fatherhood, and it's just a common thought that I have is that the easy thing to do is to kind of just take care of all the problems for your kids, especially our boys. I just want to, don't do that. Don't touch that. That's a bad decision. And just tell them, no, don't do that. But what you do is you weaken them for the
Yeah.
future. And it's harder to see the mistake a mile away. I'm driving. I can see the brick wall that you're probably going to drive into. I just want to press the brake. Don't do it. It's harder to pull back. It is harder to allow life to happen. But in the long run, in my humble opinion, if you are a good parent and you can allow your child to make that mistake, but be there when they do, and you've got two boys, and I don't know if maybe your son's gonna date a girl and like, no, she's not the right one, and she's gonna break your heart. And I dealt with the girl. No, no, okay. I kind of have to let you. I have to let her break your heart because you're gonna appreciate the person who uplifts you, who makes you happy, and that only comes with dealing with the bad. So with all that, you said a word that I love, and I think I can never truly find a definition of. Word is happy. Are you happy?
Yeah, that's funny that you asked that. And the reason I say that is because that was something that my mother asked me. My mom asked me that like 25 years ago. Okay. And I honestly didn't know how to respond to that question. And it was such an odd question at the time. And I just thought, well, I mean, I'm not unhappy. Like, I don't know. What do you mean? Okay. But I can honestly say with full sincerity that today I'm genuinely, truly happy. Okay. Not because everything's perfect and not because, I don't have challenges or face difficulties and that sort of thing, or still struggle with, fear or doubt or insecurities. And I mean, that's human nature to a certain extent. But one thing that I've really dialed in on in the last number of years is a gratitude practice. And they say that, one of the biggest mistakes that people make is thinking that they'll be, grateful when they're happy, then they can take time to appreciate the things that they have and, all the opportunities and things, material and otherwise. But I think that it actually works the other way around. And that the more grateful you can be now, right here, today, despite everything that's going around you, the more likely you are to experience true joy and real happiness. And so I think that's something that has been a practice for me and a number of my clients over the last number of years. And it's a little bit like a muscle in the sense that, the more that you use it, the stronger it becomes. And I know it's somewhat of a bit of a cliche thing these days, and especially if you've read any personal development books or you've listened to podcasts and things like that, they'll oftentimes mention gratitude. Okay.
Right. Mhm.
But at first, for me, one thing that I found is that it was just purely an intellectual exercise. And if you ask people like, hey, what are 3 to 5 things that you're grateful for? Most people, they're pretty quick to say, well, I'm grateful for my friends. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful for my job. I'm grateful for, my partner or whatever it might be.
Mhm.
Okay. But if you really press them or you ask them to come up with like new things every day, they start to realize that, oh man, like, I don't know, like, and they start scratching the bottom of the barrel. And it's so interesting because if you ask me, I think we live in a time and place where, we're better off than 99.9% of the human population that has ever existed throughout history.
Mhm.
And we are surrounded by what I would call like, you know, miracles every day. You know, everything from electricity at our fingertips, you know, being able to walk into a room and turn on a light switch, or having refrigeration and things like that, or indoor plumbing,
Right.
access to hot water on demand. And not only that, but like a unlimited supply of clean water,
Right. Right.
you know, and those are the sorts of things that are easy to take for granted, aren't they?
Yeah. Oh, very much true. Very true. I ask people about happiness. One, are you happy? And then when I get that quick yes,
Yeah.
I like to dig in. So
Yeah.
what does it mean to you to be happy? So I'm not asking you because you basically just said it, and I appreciate that. But I think the easy answer is yes to being happy. The harder question is, what does happiness mean to you? Sometimes I think people mistake happiness for contentment.
Mm,
I'm okay with what I've got going on now, so I'm happy. But I think happiness is above content. I've got what I have, and I'm so grateful for it, and I appreciate it. And if nothing were to change, I would be great with this. But I also want more too. I
right.
think I think happiness it's introspective, and I think it's something every particular person there's a different answer to it. But I also respect the people who say, you know what, I'm not happy.
Hmm.
Why not? And
Sure.
then if you can answer that, a person who knows that they're not happy, but more importantly knows why they aren't, is a person that will be. Because
Mm,
you know what you're missing, but you
sure.
also can figure out what the steps are. And I think that's what coaches like us do. I can find a man who knows where he is, what his problem is, what his struggle is, what's missing. And when you figure out what's missing, you motivate a man to go get it.
Right.
And what a lot of men, I want to be. All right, what do you have to do to get there?
Right.
What haven't you done to be happy?
Right.
So I think, I don't know, is that something? I mean, obviously, it may not be phrased the way I do it, but is that something that you do in your coaching program?
Yeah, absolutely. And a mentor of mine said a long time ago, he said, you know, always be grateful, but never be satisfied.
Yeah.
And it just speaks to what you're talking about there, about like appreciate like where you are and what you have, and you know, everything from the big things to the little things.
Mhm.
Okay.
Right.
Appreciate that, be grateful for that, but always be striving to learn and to grow and to become more.
Right.
And you know, I think that, to your point there about some people are say like, well, they know that they're not happy. Okay. I think that can actually be a very positive, you know, situation, you
Right.
know, and, you know, whether it's a discontentment or disappointment, I think feelings like that or emotions like that can actually be a very creative state, because that kind of thing can be a motivation to move
Yes.
forward and to begin to get yourself out of a slump, or to get yourself out of a rut, or to start to create what it is that you do want,
Right.
you
Agreed.
know.
Mhm.
And I think even as far as kind of emotions are concerned, like oftentimes you know, our emotions are meant to be like the indicator lights on our car. What I mean is, like, there are no good or bad emotions. Like, obviously there are some emotions that are more enjoyable to experience,
Right.
like joy and peace of mind and fulfillment and things like that. And other ones that are less enjoyable, like we've all experienced some form of grief or shame or disappointment and things like that, you know. But our emotions are, they're like the indicator lights on a car.
Yep.
And if we're experiencing an emotion, it's just trying to alert our attention to something, you know, and quote unquote bad emotions or negative emotions are oftentimes trying to tell us that, hey, there's something here that needs your attention. There's something here that needs to change. And it's just like, you know, if the check engine light comes on your car,
Right.
I mean, obviously that's not great. And you want to take a look at it. You want to
Right.
get that into the shop, or, you know, pop the hood and that sort of thing. But a lot of times what happens is when people, men specifically, their check engine light comes on in the, you know, with their emotional state, there's a tendency to want to like tear off a little piece of electrical tape and just cover that up.
Oh yes.
Well,
Oh
I
yeah.
don't want to look at that. I don't
Mhm.
want to talk about that. I don't want to deal with that. Let's not worry about that right now. You know, what happens is that festers
Yep. Yep.
and it gets worse.
Yep. So
It's
true.
it certainly doesn't get better on its own, you know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Mhm. Oh yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I talk to men. Oh, my apologies. I talk to men, and that's a big thing. You maybe as a husband, I had a bad day at work, a bad few days at work. I come home and maybe I'm a little extra, maybe I'm a little rude to my wife or to my kids. That yell, that extra emotion, it's not it's not that moment, but it's an indicator of something else. I'm
Right.
overly stressed and I'm putting it out and somebody else is getting it when I shouldn't be releasing that to somebody else. That's strong. And that's that light. It's like, okay, listen, change your oil. It's like, okay,
Right.
I'm yelling, I'm upset. What does that mean? Don't just, oh, okay, it's just a bad day. No, no, no. Because if that's not your temperament, is that usually the way you are? Body's telling you something. Your body is telling you need to do something for you. The next letter in the word prize is Z. The word is zeal, enthusiastic devotion. We
Mm.
men spend, and you mentioned at the beginning, we spend so much time taking care of others, our
Right.
spouse, our kids, our business, our friends, our whatever, that we don't take care of us. So I spend a lot of time talking to men. What do you do for you that is not associated with work or your wife or your kids or your friends or maybe your friends? Something that it is purely for your mental well-being, something so that you feel better, because life is stressful and it always will be. But what do you do for a few hours where you can kind of let it go? So for you, when it's not for the coaching of the men, or maybe the plunge with the wife, or running around with your sons, what do you do for Matt to make
Yeah.
you feel better about life?
Yeah. That's something that I actually talk a lot about. And I really feel strongly about this in the sense that I will prioritize my mental and my emotional state above and beyond just about everything else in my life. And the reason I say that, and some people think that's being selfish of myself,
Mhm.
but the reason I say that is like, I turn to that analogy of, when you're flying on an airplane and the flight attendant always says like to put your oxygen mask on first,
Yep.
because if you're not taking care of yourself, it's hard to be of much service to other people. And so I have a morning routine that is pretty solid as far as kind of just starting my day, setting me up for success, and ensuring that I'm in a great place mentally, emotionally, and physically to take on my challenges throughout the day. Because you're right, it's not a matter of if challenges are going to arise. That's just the nature of life. Okay. It's a certainty. They're coming.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
The only question is, well, how prepared am I going to be when they arise? How resilient, how ready am I going to be when they do come? And so, what do I do to ensure that I'm in a great emotional and mental, physical state? Physical activity and workouts have always been really big for me.
Okay.
And, for me, like a lot of people, I got into the gym and got into physical fitness, because, well, for mostly superficial reasons, but I just wanted to look better with my shirt off.
Right.
And I was single back in my 20s and so on and so forth. And I thought it would lend itself to being a little bit more confident.
Right.
And it does. But the truth is that the biggest reason that I work out today is because of what it does for me mentally.
That's good.
It improves my mood, improves my energy, it boosts my confidence, allows me to be more patient, to be more present. I'm just a better parent. I'm a better person on
Mhm.
days that I work out.
Right.
And so that's the biggest motivation now for being physically active and physically fit. But another big one for me is getting outside and in nature.
Okay.
And I find that, connecting with nature and some form of a higher power or, can be very therapeutic for me. And it makes me and my so-called like problems seem so small and insignificant. You look up at the vastness of the stars or the power of the ocean. I live a few minutes away from the Pacific Ocean here, so I'll go down there a couple of times a week, and I just find I come back feeling refreshed and renewed and more calm and more patient and that sort of thing. So those types of things are really important to me, and I find I have to prioritize them.
Yeah.
And if I'm not, my family notices, my kids sure notice, but I'm not even showing up as the best coach on
Right.
days if I'm not taking care of myself either. So, there's personal and professional benefits to doing all of that.
You brought up a word that I hear every time I mention zeal, and it's selfish.
Hmm.
As men, we are so we're so kind of trained to take care of the others that the sheer thought of taking care of yourself, selfish is the word that comes along. And I'll tell men, okay, now what? Yes, fine. Call it selfish, call it what you will, but what are you doing for you? You are allowed, you are valuable enough, you are special enough to do something for yourself. And as a husband, when I talk to husbands, and I use this analogy all the time, it's if it's I'm in the complete opposite because I'm a stay-at-home dad. So my
Okay.
wife works and she goes out, she comes to the world. But let's just say you're your husband, dad, you go out and you work. And wife, mom's home, she's with these kids. Let's just say, for example, these two boys who are rambunctious, who are running around, energetic. They hopped up on Capri Sun and whatever, and they're happy to be. And she's been dealing with these kids and she's waiting. Like she's waiting for you to come home. And like that's her break. That's like, okay, he's almost here. He comes home at 6 and blah, blah, blah. And then what I do is I'll turn perspective. So what you got is this man coming home, but he's coming home from an incredibly stressful job. Like he's been working, he's on his sales, he's on these sales calls, he's trying to hit his quota, he's doing all this stuff, and he's done. And in his mind, home is a break. But then he gets home and he's dealing with this. And he realizes when he's walking in what she's expecting, but he also knows that I'm not 100% right now. Right now, I'm like 25%. I am just hanging on. I'm just fighting for my life. I've been trying to get this promotion. I didn't get it. I see this other guy who doesn't have a family, who doesn't have any responsibilities, and he's working 20-hour days, and I can't do it, and I'm trying, and I can't do it, and I come home, and I just need him. I need like an hour. I just want to walk. I want to go somewhere and yell. I want to go shoot some hoops. I need to do something. And I'm like, you know what? There's going to be a time when you're going to come home and you may have to disappoint the person you love. Like, babe, I love you. I know you need me. And if I came in right now, I wouldn't be helping you. I would make the situation worse. And I don't know if there's ever been a situation where I felt worse than that, where I came in and I'm supposed to be helping, but I know if I came in, I'd be hindering you. And you have to recognize that you got to tell, listen, I can't do it yet. I know you've been waiting. Give me an hour and I will come back and I will be 100%. And then you can go, but I need time. And sometimes we have to prioritize ourselves so much that it inconveniences the people around us. And that's hard. That is a hard thing to do as a man, because that's against everything that we're brought up to do.
Yeah. I think oftentimes we're kind of like taught, whether it's consciously or unconsciously, that the solution in situations like that is just to buckle down, work harder, and do more. Okay. And I know because I've been there. And that was my approach for a lot of years. I owned and operated my own brick and mortar business back in my hometown. And I was doing everything I could just to try to keep my head above water. And I'd come home at the end of the day or at the end of the week and just exhausted with nothing left in the tank. And that can only go on for so long. And eventually I hit burnout, where I was no good to anybody anymore. And so the truth of the matter is that you can't really sustain that. You can get away with that for a little while, but you can't sustain that. And I think that, being able to maybe even have a conversation, being able to articulate that, being able to communicate that either with your family or your partner or your kids. And like, look, I just need like 20 minutes. I'm going to go for a walk around the block. And, it's one of those things that it's so simple and so underutilized. But I think that being able to have a conversation like that and that's another thing I'm grateful for, is having a supportive partner who understands that sometimes I need that little time away. And I'm somewhat of an introvert. I'm maybe like an introverted extrovert, but I need more time than others, I find, to kind of like gather my thoughts and collect myself, and then I need to recharge my battery. And there's some people who really thrive in their social situations and they get a lot of energy from hanging out and conversing and socializing. I find that takes a lot of energy, and I'm okay with that, but I also need the time to kind of like recharge and bounce back. But if you're with a partner or with a person in life where you can understand that and reciprocate that, because I know that there are also things that my wife needs, as far as kind of like things that fuel her tank or fill her tank or make her feel energized and passionate and brought to life. And basketball, you mentioned shooting hoops. You know, she's a big basketball player, and she played at a Division II college in the States for a number of years. And so, you know, that really brings her a lot of joy. And so we do our best to try to look out for each other and encourage each other to do those things that, you know that we get a lot of value from, and that are really uplifting, because everybody wins if you can do that. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. When I talk to a lot of my clients, one thing I talk about self-care.
Right.
And self-care is, what do you do to take care of yourself? How do you keep yourself healthy? One thing I kind of, and I think I discovered, because I'm in a really good situation too, in that self-care is finding the partner who allows you to take care of yourself.
Right.
Finding, like you have, the partner who's like, you know what? Sometimes this person knows you better than you know yourself. Like this, like maybe she knows when you're starting to get annoyed, when you're starting to get angry. Maybe the tone with your sons is a little bit different than it usually is. And maybe you don't feel it yet, but maybe she knows and she can say, you know what? I got it. Go ahead. Self-care is understanding somebody who's like, go take care of yourself, but sometimes pushes you in that direction when you need it. And I don't think men think about that in terms of self-care. I mean, self-care still feels like it's a pretty new thing anyway for men.
Right.
But in terms of the relationships that we create, that we put ourselves in, finding that person who is like, all right, you need a minute. And it's not an attack and it's not negative. It is acknowledging, okay, he's getting, his tank is full or his tank is empty. And either he's going to be shot or he's going to be overexposed to something base. And when you surround yourself with good people, people who love you and value you, especially as men, because we need that respect so much. We need that so much. You take really good care of yourself when you surround yourself with people who help you take care of yourself. And that's something that I spend a lot of time talking to men about. Who's around you? Who do you talk to? Who loves you?
Right. Wow. Yeah. And so, out of curiosity, when you talk about that, are you talking in reference to the family, or are you talking social circles and network? Are you talking
All of it.
friends, or all of it?
All of it. So I mean, most of them and I speak to have a relationship of some kind. So a partner of some kind.
Yeah.
So I've been lucky to catch a few men who are on the verge of maybe they're going to propose, or they're
Mm.
going to, they'll get married, and they're like, listen, I think I'm ready to propose, but I think, like, what do you think? Whatever. And we've kind of talked about the relationship, and I'll just kind of throw things at you. I know you because we've spoken. We've had our sessions and such. And from what I've spoken to you about, work is the thing that triggers you. Work
Mm.
is the thing that gets you sometimes. I talked to a guy who had done this project, and he was ready to get this promotion, and he did everything possible. And in the end, the company looked outside and took somebody in, and he didn't get the promotion. And he was riled up, and I got it. And I understood that. And work was his thing. Does this woman who you plan on spending the rest of your life with, does she understand who she may be saying yes to? Does she understand how important work is for you? Does she understand that you saw your dad growing up and he was working to take care of the family? So that's why you associate work with success, with money,
Right.
with all that stuff. Does this woman understand that with you? Does she get mad when you do this? And it took him a minute. Like, he delayed asking for a month or two because he's like, I need to have that conversation. But it wasn't a bad thing. It was just, babe, this is kind of me, and maybe I won't be that guy later on. But right now, taking for me, when I succeed at work, I really feel like I'm respected, I'm loved, I'm all that stuff. It's the one trigger that I have. And if you say yes to me right now, that's going to be the trigger. And it created a conversation between the two of them. And they're married, they're happy, it's awesome. But one of the few times a man was like, I'm going to marry this woman, but this person has to recognize what you're getting with me because I'm worth it. And it's a newer thing that came about when I was talking to this particular gentleman.
Yeah.
What do you do? What do you, self-care is the people you surround yourself with. And who are we around more than our kids and our spouse?
Great point. Right. Yeah. Well, I oftentimes will say that, you cannot overstate the importance of your environment. And they say that, you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with.
Okay. Okay.
And the reason is because we always unconsciously take on the qualities, the traits, the characteristics of the people that we're hanging out with.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you notice, but sometimes when you're hanging around with certain people over time, you start to talk like them. You start to maybe even dress like them,
Mhm.
start to use certain hand gestures or mannerisms. And it just kind of happens unconsciously. In fact, there's been a number of different scientific research studies that have been done that conclude that, if you hang around with 5 smokers, you'll be the 6th.
Mm.
If you hang around with 5 overweight people, that's going to influence your physical body as well. And so you got to be very intentional about who you're spending time with, about who you're hanging out with, because
Mhm.
that tends to rub off on us. But I think that one of the biggest decisions you can make is, your life partner,
Mhm.
for obvious reasons. But I just had a conversation with a young client who was out on the island here where I live visiting, and he actually just proposed. And so they're getting married here in the next, coming years, I assume. And I was really encouraged to see the type of relationship that they had. And I think that they've got a bright future ahead of them. But I shared with him that, this is one of the biggest decisions that you'll ever make. And the reason is because who you choose to spend your life with, this woman is either going to support you, encourage you, and inspire you to become the best version of yourself. And she'll be there like the wind beneath your sails, or the wind at your back, so to speak.
Mhm.
Or alternatively, she'll undercut your efforts every step of the way. And I know guys who have gone both. I know guys who have done both. I know guys, and myself included, who have married amazing women. And there's an aspect of them sometimes where they have that capacity to see something in us that we don't even necessarily see in ourselves. And they sometimes see that potential or our strengths and can be really encouraging and supportive, or they know what buttons to push, and they know our weaknesses, and they know how to chop us down at the knees,
Mhm.
and so it can be that's obviously a big decision, but it's one that, can make or break it for some guys,
Definitely.
you
Definitely.
know.
Yeah. The last letter in the word prize is E, and the word is expectation. A,
Mm.
a strong belief that something will happen or be the case in the future. I reach out to you and I'm looking for a coach.
Right.
When we're speaking, maybe I don't know if I don't know if there's ever an end date with you in terms of coaching you, man. When I decide that I'm going to have you as my coach, what can I expect from our
Mm.
time spent together?
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I see my job as a coach in kind of 4 distinct roles or categories. Okay. And the first is to open your mind and your imagination to what might be really possible for you. And the reason I say that is because sometimes we can get so like fixated or, stuck in and suffer from what I would call tunnel vision, where there are things that maybe we've never even considered before, or we fail to see kind of the opportunities that might lie just over the next horizon, so to speak. And so just to get you to start to think a little bit bigger, dream a little bit bigger, and start to envision a larger version of you, okay, is first and foremost. Okay,
Mhm.
start to open your mind and your imagination. The second thing is to believe in you, even if you don't necessarily have the belief in yourself just yet. In coaching, I always say, not only is it a transfer of knowledge, but it's a transfer in that belief. And I've seen so many people overcome some unbelievable challenges and go on to achieve some inspiring things that I know that just about anything is possible. Okay. The third thing that I see is to provide some tips, tools, strategies, to stay focused, to stay on track, and to stay consistent Okay. So when we talk about habits, when you talk about discipline, when we talk about consistency, when we talk about goal setting, there's a number of different things, even from a neuroscientific standpoint, where it's like understanding the mind, learning how to implement new habits can be life-changing, to say the least. But then the fourth thing that I see as my job as a coach is to provide that accountability. And, I find that it's so simple and yet so powerful. But sometimes, I don't know about you, Harvey, but I can get pretty good at selling myself on my own brand of bullshit, and I can rationalize and justify just about anything when it's convenient to me, and I can
Mhm.
make excuses and delay and procrastinate and let myself off the hook.
Mhm.
And for whatever reason, I find that sometimes when you have to answer to another human being, you're exponentially more likely to follow through on a task than if it was just up to you. And so those regular contacts, those regular check-ins, those regular reminders are something small, but in the big scheme of things, it's actually pretty significant.
I like that. I like your program. I like what you do. It's very good. Accountability is a big word for us, especially for us men. It's, and I think it's something that we need. I'm an epic procrastinator, epic proportions, and it's good. And I have a wife who stern when necessary, gentle when need to be, or what the hell? Why haven't you finished? And it just sometimes, and we all need some version of that. And I get all three. And for us men, I think we have so much on our plate that sometimes tunnel vision is a big thing. Sometimes it's necessary to narrowing what I'm trying to do because sometimes
Sure.
there's so much. And sometimes I, you know what, and even when it comes to certain parts of the day or certain responsibilities, I've been working and then I've got four, I've got three girls, one son.
Oof.
Yes.
You got your hands full.
Yeah. Oh, all the time. And sometimes, and as a father, one thing I'm sure is that you don't parent each child the same.
Right.
And sometimes I gotta just focus on my 20-year-old son and just talk with him. And we have a conversation and we speak this way. And or my 18-year-old daughter, or my 14-year-old daughter, or my 9-year-old. And sometimes it's just you. It's just the focus. I said we were gonna do this, we're gonna do this. And there's so much. And I like the word expectation because I like what you do, but I need to expect things of myself.
Right.
And I teach that in my kids. I need you expect to succeed. Expect to lose sometimes, but learn from the loss and things like that. Expectation carries so much weight when a lot of the men that I talk to. I only thing I expect when I start coaching you is that you are going to be open-minded, which is very similar
Mm.
to you. I'm gonna listen to your life. I'm gonna listen to your life story to a degree. And I'm gonna tell you mine too. And then I'm going to expect you to at least give something an opportunity to try to change something that you were doing that may not have been working. Well, what if we try this instead? Or why isn't this working? Expecting to learn, I think is a good thing. And I ask men this, and this when this randomly pops in them. As a coach, we teach, we kind of engender thought and figure out things on your own, that type of thing. Do you prefer teaching or learning?
Hmm. Well, learning all the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that that's the kind of thing too, that it kind of goes hand in hand. And in fact, they say that, one of the best things to learn something is to turn around and teach it to another.
Mm, agreed.
And so, I think that being able to learn from those around you, learn from experience, and then turn around and share what you've learned with another person just reinforces that and, kind of ingrains that learning even deeper. And so I think they probably go hand in hand.
Mhm. I agree. I agree. A good teacher is willing to learn. And I think in every episode of this podcast, I pick up something new from every person. And every time I coach a gentleman, I pick up something new too. I'm certainly not the perfect man, but what I am is willing to pick up a little something from every person that I coach, that I talk to. I gain something. So I love to learn. I love to be taught. I love it all. The last letter in the word prize is I. It's in the middle and it doesn't represent a word. It represents you, Matthew. So when we take away the shackles, the titles of husband, father, coach, teacher, everything else, when you take all that stuff, put it all aside, and it's just you at your core, who are you?
Oh man. that's a conversation I'm sure we could dive into for hours, but I've spent a lot of time thinking about that, and kind of going back and forth, because that's a rabbit hole in and of itself, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Mhm.
But there's a number of different books and influential people that have helped me to understand that question a little bit better. And one of them is a man by the name of Michael A. Singer. And he wrote two specific books, but one that comes to mind, this is the most gifted book that I'll give to friends and clients. And that's called The Untethered Soul. Okay. And in that book, he explains, how we oftentimes get caught up in our physical bodies, thinking that, I am Matt, I am a man, I am a father, I'm a husband. But like you said, when you start to peel all that away, well, Matt was just a name that was assigned to me at birth. Okay. And like, I'm a man, but at one point I was just a boy. I haven't always been a father or a husband. So these are, words that could be used to describe me, but at the core of it, who am I really? And throughout the course of this book and a lot of the learnings and introspection that I've gone through, I've come to the realization that I think that, at its core, I think I'm a spiritual being that's having a human experience, and I'm here to learn and unlearn and remember what it's like to, be, a spirit. And that might sound corny. It might sound, super woo or, airy and that sort of thing. But I think that, at the end of the day, there's probably some truth to that. And it's something that is a question that's worth exploring at the very least.
Yes, it is. I can honestly tell you, I ask people that question and I get it back. And I can say, as of right now, I'm 49. I turn 50 in a few months. I couldn't answer it. I don't think I know exactly who I am right now. I am still on this journey, on this path to finding out. And it's okay. We don't have to have the answers for everything. We don't have to know everything. Just willing to figure it out. Right? I
Right.
think it's a good thing. I think it
That's
is.
that's a great point.
Yeah. Thanks for answering those questions in the prize mantra. I really appreciate it. I wanted to ask one more thing. So I do a little bit of research in the men that I speak to. So I was on Facebook and I was kind of looking through you, and I saw a post that you put on Facebook, and I think it's how you ended 2023.
Mhm.
And 2023 was a great year, both personally and professionally, but it didn't come without a few powerful reminders. And you put 5 things that I thought were interesting. You remember the post I'm talking about? Does that sound familiar? Is this you?
You'll have to refresh my memory.
All right. So you can only meet people as deep as they've met themselves.
Mm,
The second one was don't take things so personally. That's the
mm,
one that stuck with me. I can honestly say that I hear stuff and I'm like, I for some reason I would feel like they're talking about me. And it's not me, it's somebody talking. It's so important to recognize that the opinions of most people can't matter if your opinion has to be the one that's the most important. So I love that. My triggers reveal where I have work to do. I
right.
like that a lot. I like that a lot. That what bothers me, and I went right along with two. Manage your remembering.
Mm,
Managing our remembering is a conscious choice. Choosing to focus on positive memories rather than dwelling on painful ones is a powerful choice. I like that too. And finally, the healing I do as a has a generational effect. Doing the deep work ourselves provides our kids with an emotional toolkit that allows them to understand and express their emotions in a positive way. I just wanted to say I saw something that was posted and I loved it. And I wanted to end this with one question. We are past halfway through this year. Have you learned something in the 6, 7 months that we've gone through life? Is there something that you've caught on through 2024 that you may not have known in 2023?
hmm. I'm not sure. I mean, I'd have to think about that for a moment. And I like that post that you brought up from 2023, though. That was a smart post, and I may have got lucky there with a couple of those. But all of those seem to still ring true,
Okay.
and I think that there's a power in each of those points. And if there's one thing that I've learned, up until this year, I think that if you can't believe in yourself, it's hard to believe in much else. And I think the learning to develop that confidence and that belief and that faith in yourself is one of the most powerful things that you can do, you know? And I think that in order to do that, you have to have a clear vision for what it is that you want to create, for where it is that you want to go, and who it is that you want to become. I think it also helps to have a plan to help break that down into, you know, actionable bite-sized steps to help you get there. And then to your point earlier, to surround yourself with people that are motivating, that are inspiring, that are encouraging, who are uplifting, and who speak life into your world, I think, you know, is invaluable. But I think that without that belief in yourself or that faith in yourself, it's hard to accomplish much. And, you know, I went through some challenging times early in the year, and I think that it really rang true for me that I just had to hold tight, stick to my guns, and be firm in what I believe in, and know that, hey, if I'm consistent and if I'm persistent, like, I can't not win.
Like it. And that's the perfect way to end this. I appreciate this conversation, Matthew. Thank you so very much. Where can people find you, follow you on social media, website, all yours?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me, Harvey. It's been a pleasure to connect with you today. I'm most active on Instagram. My handle is Matt. I think it's underscore Jodouin is my last name. But what I've done recently is I've actually created a free community on a platform called School. And School is an opportunity to house all kinds of great, powerful trainings and resources. It's also an opportunity to connect and create community. And so I don't know if you'd agree with this, Harvey, but I think that as men, we've oftentimes been either consciously or unconsciously been led to believe that, you know, we should do things on our own,
Right.
or that we should figure it out by ourselves, or that we should, you know, just, you know, figure it out as we go, so to speak. And I think that that's actually been a real detriment to mankind. And if you think about it, you know, for tens of thousands of years, men around the world have gathered together around the campfire, so to speak, to learn from each other, to share with one another, to support each other, and to help each other to learn and to grow. And, you know, just like they say that iron sharpens iron, I think that when you surround yourself with strong, smart, intelligent, supportive men, like, it helps us to become a better version of ourselves. And so I've created a free community on School called Mindful Men, where I share a ton of resources and mindset trainings, but I also host guest speakers and leaders from around the world in different capacities and different backgrounds, different experiences, and free workshops where we speak about everything from habits to self-image to self-confidence and so on and so forth. So if anybody's looking to connect with me, probably the best place would be Instagram or on School at my free Mindful Men community.
Fantastic. All that information will be in the episode notes. Matthew, thank you so much for this conversation. It's wonderful. I'm going to take a look at School. This thing also sounds like something I don't know, I'd like to be a part of, or maybe possibly start. But thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's been a pleasure to connect with you, Harvey. And thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, thank you for talking. Thank you so much. Hang on for a sec. It's a fantastic episode, as usual. Great man to come in here to talk. We have a good conversation. We're discussing what it means to be a man. We all have the same issues. We all have the same struggles, but getting through it, that's what really makes you a man. We go through our struggles, but we come through every time. And we're used to coming through for everybody in our lives, but it's good to come through for yourself. I'm glad I had a chance to talk. You know how I end these. To every man, I'm happy. I'm enjoying life. But I know there are men out there who are struggling. I know there are men out there who are fighting. And as a reminder, we men attempt suicide far more than women. And so I always talk to these men as we end these episodes. Life is tough. I get it. Life is difficult. I know it. Stress, it's pushing down. But I want to remind you that there's somebody who's waiting to hear your voice today. There's somebody who's waiting for you to walk in a room and make them laugh, make them upset, to argue, to debate, to do something. Somebody's waiting for you. You are so important, and you don't even know who that person is, but they know you, and they care about you, and they love you. So before you make any decisions, because life is getting too tough, don't do it. You are needed on this earth. You are needed in this world, and somebody needs you. But you got to stick around. You got to stay here because you are an amazing man. You are special. You are important. And most importantly, you are the prize. Have a good one.